Hello there everyone, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns and today I'm going to show you how to make this framed regal macrame bracelet. And this is what mine looks like here. So you can see we have these large beads in the middle, which are kind of the main feature, and they're then kind of framed in place by these metallic smaller beads and also rows of macrame on either side. And those large beads in the middle run all the way along. And then I've made a button and loop closure, so it's nice and easy to use, just like this here, to put on and off. And mine then looks like this on. So you can see we have those larger beads in the middle going all the way around the wrist, framed in by the beads on the side and also the knot work, and then the button and loop closure there on the back, which obviously, because it's a nice looking button as well, a nice feature, if it kind of flips around in your wrist while you wear it, that's also nice and decorative, so it doesn't really matter too much. Now, I'd love to hear from you in the comment section down below what you think of this bracelet here and if you plan to make it. And also, if you have any other things you want to say, like any requests or things that you'd like to see from me, please feel free to leave that there as well. But if you want to learn how to make this bracelet, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we're going to need. First of all, the cord that I'm using is this 1mm satin cord in this lovely burgundy colour. You can use a different kind and thickness, of course. Just be aware that it might give you different results and you might have to adjust your beads as well a little bit. So then first of all, here are the large beads that I'm using. These are 8mm rounds. Now the specific ones are blue coated faceted hematite gemstone beads. Now regardless what beads that you choose to use, you just gotta make sure that the holes are large enough for 2 lengths of your cord to go through. Now the smaller beads here are 4mm rounds. These specific ones are silver metal spacer beads, just to add a bit of metallic to the piece. And also they would match nicely to my shank button there that I'm going to use to help finish off the bracelet with. Now there's going to be the material list and links as well in the description box down below. So let's get all the materials ready and let's get started. So then we need some lengths of our cord. So what I have here is a length of about 70 centimeters, and this is going to be the holding cord. So what I've also done is I've just singed the ends like this. So just melted them down with a lighter and rolled them there to create a bit of a needle. This is going to make them much easier to get through the holes in the beads. And then we need another 2 lengths here of about 2 meters each, and these are going to mainly be the working cords. And what I've also done on the ends of these here is singe them down just so they're also ready for the beads. So then what I've done is I've taken all my lengths of cord and attached them onto my macrame board. So I just put them all into the same slot at the top, and on the bottom here I just put the holding cord into a slot, and then obviously the working cords are loose because we need to work with them. And I've placed all my cords here, so basically we're starting from the middle with all of them. So this is the midpoint roughly of the holding cord, and I have more or less equal lengths going to the top and to the bottom there. And as for the working cords, same thing, also the midpoint, because what we need to do is make some square knots here to make the loop first of all, and then we need to move on from there, which we need more or less equal lengths to be able to do. So we need to make that loop first using square knots. So to do that, I'm going to take my working cords here and then make a first square knot. I'm going to start with my left side. So bring that left cord over the holding cord. Then I take the right one over that, and then underneath everything in the middle. So I just lift up the holding cord there and cross underneath both of them, and then bring it up through the loop there on the other side. Pull it all the way through, and then I'm going to tighten this first half to about the midpoint on that holding cord. Now this is the first half of the knot, and as you can see it's still loose, but then to make the other half, to make the full knot, I'm going to then take the right one over, the left one goes over that, underneath everything in the middle, and up through the loop on the other side. So the same, but just mirrored. And then we can just retighten that first half, and then as we tighten the second half here, that creates a full knot, and now also it's not loose anymore. This is going to stay like this on the holding cord. So now what you want to do is continue making square knots. So I'm just going to start another one the exact same way, because we need a whole row of square knots, enough to be able to make the loop. And obviously the size of your loop is going to depend on the button that you're using, so you're going to have to measure against that. And also in this direction here, I'm going to make 1/2 of the length that I need, because then I'm going to flip my board around and make the other half on the other side here, just so we use both lengths pretty evenly. So what I just want to mention is that when you flip your piece around when you made that first half, you just need to make sure that you start from the opposite side. So before I started with my left side and then I made my knot. Here you need to start with the opposite side because your cords are coming out in the opposite direction. So you need to make sure that you keep an eye on where the cords are coming out from to see where your next square knot needs to be started. So in this case here, because my right cord is the one that's coming out kind of towards the bottom of the knot, you'll be able to see you kind of have a bit of a loop going across the top of it, whereas on the other side, the cord is coming out towards the top of it. So we need to start from the side where it's coming out towards the bottom or the back. So just start from the opposite side there to make sure we make a continuous and consistent length of square knots. So now that I have a length of my square knots here, the way you want to test it against your button to see if it's long enough is you want to first of all start shaping this into a loop. So bring the two ends together, making sure that all these knots here stay flat so they don't flip up on the side like that. Just bring the two ends together and then just hold them in place so that loop stays for you to be able to test the button through. So I grab the button and then you just want to make sure it can go through easily enough so obviously it fits through the whole way, but also so the loop isn't too large either because it does need to be secure enough to wear. So I know now this is the right size for my button. So I've now just fastened my loop here onto my project macrame board just to make it nice and easy to work with, and I've used these T-pins here that look like this, and I'm also going to use them throughout just to kind of hold my work in place so it doesn't keep moving around. Then I need to bring the two ends together there, fastening them together so the loop actually keeps its shape. So I have the two holding cords. It's now two, it's only one running through obviously, but it's two cords coming down, those are the holding cords. Then I have two lengths of working cord coming down in the middle here, and then I have a cord on either side. Now these two, the one on either side, are the ones I'm going to use to fasten this loop together. So all we're going to do is make another square knot using these. So it's going to be around all of these cords in the middle. So for now we're going to have 4 holding cords here, but do the square knot in the exact same way. Bring one over, the other one over that, and then make sure it goes underneath all of them there in the middle, and then up through the loop on the other side. You can see just a regular square knot, and then I just like to kind of hold these cords down taut while I then tighten it. And then make the other half. Again underneath, all of them in the middle. And then tighten that. Because now that loop is fastened in place. And you can just also just pull those cords down in the middle there and push against the knot just to make sure it's completely nice and tight. So there we go. So now we need to start getting into the main part of the bracelet here. So I'm just gonna move it around so it's more comfortable to work with, and we need to separate our cords out again because we're kind of going to have two sides to this. So like I said, we have the two lengths of the holding cords now. They're the shorter ones, so you need to make sure you separate these cords out properly. So we have long ones, one on either side, that's the very outer ones, and then the middle one on either side there, if you separate it down halfway, should be the short ones. Those are the holding cords. So make sure those short ones are in the middle on either side, and again a long one right here, these two in the middle as well. So if you just look at in these groups of 3 and keep one group to the right and then keep the other group towards the left. So we're just kind of here going to work on one side at a time. I'm just going to start with my left side, it doesn't really matter. And then to separate out the cord, so we have that shorter one in the middle of these 3, that is the holding cord. So we just need to start making square knots around this with the other 2 longer working cords. So again, I'm just going to start on my left side here. So bring the left one over, the right one goes over that one, underneath all of them in the middle there and up through the loop. And then tighten this, and then that gets tightened underneath that previous square knot that we made that collected all of them together. And then do the other half. So just like this, just hold that holding cord taut whenever you're tightening your knot. And you want to make a few square knots here because what we basically need to do is get the cords in position so we can start adding in our beads as well. So this is the one side. And it's about getting the right spacing, so obviously that first bead will actually fit right there in the middle. So make your knots on this side like this. Now when you move over to the other side, it's the same principle. We have our 3 cords, the short one in the middle, that's the holding cord, but here we just need to start opposite. So because here I'm starting with the outer one, I want to do the same on this side, so that means I need to start with the right length. Bring that over first. So that's the only thing really to pay attention to, just to make sure it gets nice and even, because it does kind of matter with how it looks when we also start adding in the beads. So the only difference is here you want to start from the opposite side, but then get to the same place on both sides so we can add in the first bead. So I now made my way down so my knots fit with where I want to add in my first bead here in the middle, and what I've ended up making is 3.5 knots, and the reason for that is because I want to make sure that the inner working cords here are coming out from those last knots, going kind of downwards towards the back of the knot, so the outer ones are coming up and away like this. So that's why it's ended up being 3.5, and also the spacing is correct. So then what we need to do is get to the ends of these two inner working cords, and I've already prepared them there, so it's going to be much easier to add on the first bead. First of all, I put one length of cord through, just bring it down a bit, then I put the other length of cord through the same hole but in the opposite direction. You can see just having those singed ends there of the cord really helps, makes it so much easier to bring through the bead. And then all you do is pull on the lengths of cord all the way until the bead sits right down there in between those two rows of the square knots. And then we have the cords going out to the side again. Now they've technically swapped places because they're crossing inside of that bead, but they're going to act in the exact same way. We just have that bead in the middle now. So we need to kind of fasten this in place. So that means we need to make a square knot on either side, but we just need to make sure we do it in the right direction. So we need to start with the cord that's actually coming out from the bead, because that's the next cord that we would have taken if we just continued making knots. So make your square knot, starting with that one, and then tighten it, and then make the other half so we have a full square knot here after we added the bead in. Just like that, nice and tight, and then the same on the other side. Again, start with the inner working cord. Make sure you hold that holding cord taut as you're tightening it. And then make the other half so we get a full one. So again, we get even spacing on both sides. It comes nice and symmetrical. So just like this. Now that's the very first bead added in. So now straight away we basically need to add the small beads on the sides as well. In my case, the little metal spacer beads. And we need to add them to the actual holding cords in this case before we make any more knots. So that's the short ones. So these ones here, just do one side at a time. So just add your bead, one bead to the left one, let that drop all the way down, and then I'm just adding one bead to the right one. And then we need to cage them in by just making another square knot, but keeping the cords now on the same side, so I'm not crossing anything through the middle bead or anything. Make another square knot to fasten this bead in place, just like this. Make the other half so that first half stays as well, because it's the second half of the knot that makes sure the knot becomes nice and tight. Same on the other side. Cage that bead in with another square knot, just like this, and we're extending the side pieces as well, you could say. We're just adding a bead in there on the holding cord. Add a bit more embellishment to it as well. So just like that. Now we are ready to actually add our next bead in the middle. So I'm going to grab that, and same principle as before. The two middle working cords is what I'm going to put through my bead, using one at a time. Get to the end. Put that through first of all in one direction, and then put the other length from the other side, going through the bead in the opposite direction. Just like that. And then we can pull the two cords tight until that bead gets trapped, you could say, in between the two rows of knots in the exact same way as the first one, but it's going to fit just perfectly there. So we also have a little bit of space in between those larger beads in the middle, because we don't want them too close to each other, because then we'd just be bunching up then. And then after that we just need to make another square knot on either side, making sure to start with a cord that's coming out from the bead, because that would be the next one that we do to take if we didn't add that bead in. If we just continued after the knot after those beads on the side, the small ones. So just like this here, make one full square knot, and the same on the other side. So that fastens that large bead in place completely. And do the other half, tighten that, and you can always sometimes just take the holding cords there and kind of pull at it while pushing against the knots, just to make sure everything is tightened up nicely and settles in place. So now we're ready to add the next beads on the side. So basically you just want to keep alternating like this. So we just take one first of all, add it to the left holding cord. You can see there, the middle one in that left group, and then the middle one also on the right group gets a bead on. And these are the short cords, so that's also how you can kind of tell them apart, at least until we've used more of the lengths. And then you just want to cage those ones in with a square knot. Make the first half, and make the other half, tighten that. So those extra beads on the side also help nicely with the space in between the large ones in the middle. Do a square knot on the other side, because basically what you can see is that those, in my case the metal spacer beads, the silver ones on the side, they fit just nicely in between the large ones in the middle. So they kind of alternate from each other and just give this really nice effect, but really quite a simple technique. And then straight away we're ready to add another large one in the middle. So you just want to keep going like this, alternating throughout until you have the length that you need. Obviously bearing in mind we just need to add the button on the end as well. So now I continued making my knots and add my beads, and I just wanted to show you how I want to measure it against my wrist. So I have my length. I've not finished off this end yet, because I can always reattach it to the board. Then I just place it around my wrist here, and then I want to bring the two ends together. And I want to make sure they don't fully meet up yet, because like I said, we're still yet to finish this end off and also add the button, but it's going to sit a little something like that. So I know this now is going to fit my size with the button added in as well. So now I've reached the length that I want here, and I finished on my large bead because that's also what we started out at. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, we want to continue the rows of knots down the side. So just do one side at a time. And we're not going to add any more beads on the side there, so the little metal spacer beads. I'm just going to now continue making a few more knots on either side. So we'll basically just elongate these rows a little bit, so we can then end up bringing them together just like how we started out on the loop end. So do the same on both sides here. So now I made the same amount of knots here as I did in the beginning, so we can then bring them together and they come around and shape around that last bead nicely. So what I'm going to do is these 4 middle cords, I'm going to just keep them together like this. Then I'm going to use the outer cord on either side and make a square knot with around all of these 4 cords. So basically bring the two sides together, and I just like to try and keep these holding cords in the middle kind of in order. Tighten that nicely. Make the other half of the knot as well. Just like that. And then I like to just grab 2 from each side there and kind of pull at them and push against the knot, just to make sure that this large knot that we just made is tight against the ends of the 2 sides there, so the previous knots. So just like that. Now what we also want to do is actually want to get rid of some of these cords here, because all I have to do really now is add the button and obviously finish off the cords, but it's going to be a little bit easier by actually getting rid of some of them. So first of all, I'm just going to add a little bit of glue, and in this case here I'm using my E6000 because it dries clear, and I just want to add the glue to add a bit of extra security to the piece, because obviously we're cutting off some cords. So what I'm going to do is add my glue to the holding cords right below the previous knot, so not on top of the knot. Just get a little bit of glue out, and it doesn't have to be too much. I just want to kind of help secure the cords a little bit more. So I'm just adding a bit of glue here to those holding cords. Doesn't really have to be any more than that. And then I take my working cords and I want to make another knot on top of that glue now before it dries. So just do another square knot and then tighten that right on top of that glue, because then when the glue then dries, it dries within the knot and makes it really nice and strong. So just like that. So that knot now is really secure. So what we can do now is actually cut off some of these holding cords as well. So I just take a pair of scissors here so I can cut some off, and I'm just going to take the two middle cords. I just like going for the middle ones, kind of hides a bit better, and then just cut them off as close as you can get to that knot. So just like that, now we got rid of them. And then I like to just make another square knot after I cut them off, just to kind of seal it in place, and in case you have little ends sticking out there. Just make sure if you have little ends sticking out that you capture them within the knot now. Just like this here. Tighten that. So now we also have a little bit of distance in place, so we can actually grab our button next and attach this. So you can see, attach this here, it's not going to sit right up close to the bead either. So all you want to do to attach it is grab the two holding cords and then put both of them through your button here. And then just push it all the way up. Have the holding cords coming back downwards. And then all you want to do is make another square knot with these working cords right below the button. Because then it basically works like a bead. You just cage it in. So tighten that there underneath the button. So obviously it gets captured with the shank on the back of it. Like that. So now it's in there nice and securely. I like to always do a second knot here, just again for a little bit extra security, and because it's hidden behind the knot anyway. So just like this, that button is now attached, and it sits nicely right on the end of the bracelet there, not too close to any of the beads. So now all that's left to do is take this off our board and then just get rid of the excess of these cords. Now the way that I'm going to finish off the ends here is by cutting off the excess and then just singeing down the cords. So basically melt it so it seals it nicely in place. I'm going to show you how to do that. But if you don't like doing that because you're working with a naked flame, then you can also add glue right to the ends where the cords are coming out from the last knot there. And then obviously once it's dried, you cut off the excess. So make sure you also add glue around the knot so that knot isn't going to come undone. But like I said, to finish it off by singeing the ends, you want to do the same with all of them here. Doesn't really matter which ones you start with. So first of all, cut off the excess, but I'm going to leave a couple millimeters of that cord. And then I bring in my ladder here. Now be careful because it's a naked flame and it does get hot. But all you do then is just melt down that end and then you push against it. So you can use the ladder itself to help push against it. And I also like to just go in my finger. That kind of just makes it nice and smooth and really pushes it in against the knot. So that's now singed in place and it's sealed that cord off, so this knot isn't going to come undone when you've done all of them. So I now got rid of all the cords and it looks like this here. So it's nice and secure, it's not going to come undone because we melted the cords together, and also it's comfortable to wear against the skin. My final bracelet then looks like this. So obviously it's ready to wear with your button and loop closure, and it's very easy to put on and off as well. So just like that, and obviously the button itself is also quite a nice feature in case it kind of rolls around on your wrist. But then this is the main part of the bracelet. So we have our large beads there running down the very center the whole way along, and I just chosen these faceted and blue impactful color wise beads in the middle, and they're kind of framed in then by these metallic beads on the side in this case, and then these rows of knots as well, which also gives it quite a regal look. So there you go. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial here. Feel free to check out my channel and also subscribe if you don't want to miss any future tutorials. I already have loads and I'm going to keep making more. So subscribe and also turn on the notification bell so you don't miss them. But thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next one.